Hey guys, Thunderhawk here, and we're getting ready to start off on a new project. Seeing as we've got a lot of other stuff behind us now, we can spend a little time between Wargames Con and the Nova Open doing a little modeling, getting ready for a big club apocalypse game that we have going on. So this is one of those projects that I've been telling you that I've been wanting to do for quite some time. For Christmas, a friend of mine, Bruce, got himself a Black Templar Thunderhawk Gunship. His wife was very nice and purchased it for him for Christmas. And Bruce is not one to build models. And we looked at paying, getting some other pay services to put it together. But I've got enough modeling experience. I think I can give this thing a go and put it together, and I think I'll take you on the journey with me. So if I make some mistakes, you won't do the same thing, or as I discover some techniques for making things work better, then of course you will be able to follow those techniques. What we're going to do is I plan on making a video of about 5 installments for this. The first one's going to cover tonight, which will be the general overview of the kit and the nomenclature of the parts. We're going to look at some of the tools that we're going to be using during assembly, and we'll look at the instructions and the decals, plus the material that we're going to use to make the stand. So the second part is going to be some of the sub-assemblies, putting them together, and then we're going to move through the final assembly, painting, and display of the model. We have several hurdles to overcome. This is working with resin. This isn't plastic. It's not like putting together a Storm Raven where everything clicks together really nice. It's pretty detailed in its resin, and it is going to mess up if you push on it too hard or if you get it too warm. So there's a good chance that I can end up honking up this model. Let's hope not. Here's the documentation you receive with your Thunderhawk. This certificate says this Thunderhawk Gunship has been sanctified and is now ready to serve the chapter. Thought for the day. And all that stuff. Alright, that's good. Propaganda from the Imperium, that's what I say. Let's get down to brass tacks. These are your instructions. Now, if you're accustomed to building just normal plastic models or whatever, you're going to notice that these things are a little sparse. In fact, this is how to assemble the entire cockpit. I guess it's pretty Forgeworld-esque. So you got step 1, and over here step 2 is the main body, some bulkhead assembly, putting the nose on, and then putting together some of the other assemblies. Step 3 right here, flipping her over, doing the landing gear and some of the gun pods, which, realistically, we're going to leave this stuff off to after painting. We'll paint it separate and then add it to there afterwards. But you can see the detail on the landing gear, the rear hatch and such. Come over to step 4. We're going to start putting it all together. It's going to start looking like a Thunderhawk. So our little assault wings and such. And then step 5, here you go. We'll be putting the wings on. Looks like the ailerons. We're going to magnetize all these weapon options so that you can go ahead and, he'll be able to switch out during the game. And then that's it, 5 steps. So, let's take a look at the parts. Okay, let's take a look at the parts that we have here. Right here is the main body. Now, this in itself is a huge piece of resin. It's pretty thick. You've got some of the sub-assemblies I've been test fitting and putting in here. These are the Forgeworld Black Templar doors, and they're in there. One of these came with the kit because it's the Forgeworld Black Templar model. The other one came with the Land Raider, which is why it's a different color. So this is the cowling that goes over the back of here. Now all this stuff is going to have to be made to fit, and you're going to see that more in video 2, how we actually get all this stuff to fit together. Now the one thing that I have to tell you for sure is that all of this stuff will have to be dry fitted extensively to ensure that it fits while you're assembling. So you're going to have to put this thing together, take it apart without glue to make sure that everything matches up the way it's supposed to be without these huge gaping seams. As far as detail goes, this thing rocks. I know it doesn't have a macro on that camera, but Logan will get as close in as he can. Here you go. I've already kind of primered the cockpit, but if you can look in there, there's tons of detail that we're getting ready to pluck out. The only thing though, and the worst thing, is that when this piece sits on there, you're not going to see but about that much of the cockpit. So, you know, I like it. I'm going to do it, but it's kind of a waste of them detailing all this stuff back here. Let's take a look at the wings. Look how thick this is. This is some thick old resin. I mean, that's an inch thick in places. That's even more. But it's good to go. If you can catch in the light, you can see that there's like little spots on here. That is going to be a mold release agent. When you pour foam into, or you pour resin into molds, you have to have something in between the mold and the hot resin so that when it dries, it'll pop out of the mold easy and won't stick. This entire model is going to have to be washed, and we're going to show you what we use to wash it later. But, needless to say, if you don't get all that mold release off, then what's going to happen is you're going to have problems with the paint sticking to it. You've got lots of interior detail here, and then this piece has had to have been reformed a lot because it was really warped when it came out of the bag. But that's your front door, so your little termies can come out, and then assault. So here's typically how you receive your Thunderhawk or anything from Forgeworld that's in these bags. It freaks me out that the stuff doesn't get broke, but it makes the trip pretty well. These are wing sponsons and weapons. These are the main weapons from the top. The little turret. These are one of the guns, one of the big old guns. Like I said, we'll be cutting off all these little nubs here, these little plastic. These are leftover parts when it was in the mold. This is where they poured in the resin from. And you're gonna have to come in with a hacksaw or something, a sharp utensil, and cut that off and sand her flat. We're gonna add some magnets to these. Here's one of the engine nacelles. If you look at that, the nozzle, the jet nozzle where the engine is, that is some great detail. I wish I had some F-16 models that had detail like that on it. But you could tell that this is a honking lot of resin, man. This is quite a lot. Here's your canopy for over the cockpit. We're going to try and magnetize this so you can lift it off, because there's a lot of great detail in there. And then you'll be able to see all the detail. We'll paint the screens up, maybe put a little Phineas and Ferb on there, some H&P on the video screens. So, okay, let's take a look now at some of the tools that we're going to use to build this monster. And basically, it's the same things, same tools you use to work on your plastic models, with a few exceptions. First of all, we've got our Dawn, and this is what we're going to wash the entire model with extensively and repeatedly. Now, you don't want to get it hot water. You don't want to wash the model in hot water because the resin becomes pliable with heat. There are a few ways that we can use that to our advantage when it comes to warped pieces on the model. We can heat them up with some warm water, not boiling or anything, but just warm. It'll make the model pliable. We could use a heat gun, which, you know, I'm not really inclined to do, or we could use a blow dryer. As long as you don't hold it too close to the model, as long as you don't get the resin too warm, you should be able to bend it back where you need it and put it in the position that you need. You may need a straight edge. You may need something like this to put the part under here with a little weight on it. That way it will flatten it out and it will be accessible. We're going to need your hobby knife with a good sharp blade, maybe a number 11. Your hobby clippers. These are just good plastic model snips. My preferred ones are the Games Workshop ones. You're going to need a hobby saw for sawing off those mold tabs. And then you're going to need a variety of sandpaper. I have these emery files here, these emery boards. I've got sanding pads. These are from Micromart. These things are great for doing detail because you can go from a rough 1500, okay, all the way up to, here's a 2400, and I believe there's a 32, which will actually make the plastic, if you're doing plastic, will make it shine like it wasn't even sanded. In fact, later on I'm going to do a tutorial about how to repair canopies on things like your Storm Raven. If you get a scratch in it, or if you buy one off of eBay and it's painted over, I'm going to do a tutorial on how to restore that thing basically to new. It's pretty incredible. We're going to have our super glue. We use a variety. We have Zap-A-Gap, we have Gorilla Glue, and just regular stuff from the hobby store. And then just a hodgepodge, a bunch of different types of sand and paper for dealing with the things. Like these are sanding pads, and then regular sand and paper. And that's about it. I mean, that's what you use. The paints that we're going to be using are, we will probably prime with Army Painter or Volo Quill Light Gray. One of the two. The paint that we're going to use on the exterior will probably be either Army Painter or maybe Citadel Chaos Black shot through the airbrush. The only problem is that once you get this thing assembled, it's not going to fit in the spray booth. So we're going to have to figure out a system to which we can circulate air through the garage and paint outside of the spray booth. But these are all problems we'll tackle together. The last thing I want to look at is the basing and how we're going to do that. Okay, the last thing that we have to do is we have to supply a sturdy base, because it's not going to do us any good to spend 30, 40 hours, however long it's going to take to build this thing, build this Thunderhawk, and then to put it on a stand and then just have it fall over and break into a bajillion pieces. Because that would suck for just about everybody, including me, because, you know, my friend Bruce doesn't build models and I would end up doing it. So here we have a stand. Now I purchased this set off of eBay, and how the guy did was he took a piece of wood, an acrylic rod. Now what's cool is this is 1/2-inch acrylic rod, and I found this for cheap on eBay. What I'm going to do is give my friend a choice of bases, and I bought these at the local Hobby Lobby. They're just frames for making little stuff, but you know, if you put it on this one and then you sunk that down in there pretty well, wood glued it in, then I imagine that would be a great base. Because this model is heavy. If you do it to this one, probably the same support. I think we're just going to test them to find out, because here's a Tau Stingray, Skyray, and it's got a 1/2-inch, a 1/2-inch rod, and this has been in my garage now for a year, and it's been sitting on the shelf. And the rod has not given up any. You can see it's not all the way through the bottom of the base. But when I was telling you before about heat and resin, if you look at the bottom of the model here, you can see right there that it has warped. Because the rod was poked through there and it was kind of a down angle, what you have then is that it has warped the resin where it was at. Let me move a little closer so we can see here. But it has warped the resin, and typically what would go in here would be a bay for a bunch of 14 different drones. But what the guy did, whoever owned it previously, he put a piece of wood up in there to accept the back end of the dowel, which is more or less what I want to do to the Thunderhawk, except for what I'm going to do, I'm going to have to figure something out. This is easily repairable. I could take the blow dryer and flatten this right out. Though when it's on the stand, having it fly at the downward angle, it's not really that bad, because that's what it does anyway. It shoots things on the ground. But I think I'm going to take it out, put it into a case or something at this point. So I think that's about it. I think this is a good first round. We've looked at all the parts. We've talked about assembly. We talked about the fact that I'm going to do 5 or 6 episodes of this. We've looked at how we're going to base it. Talked about what tools we needed to assemble it and to glue it together and to work on it, you know, with the blow dryer, the saws, the sandpaper. And we're going to take this journey together. So you can check back often. Probably will post once every couple of weeks, depending on what's going on. We've got the Nova Open happening, so I know I won't be able to work on it during the week of the Nova, but I'm going to try and get something done every couple of weeks. And then at the end, we'll see how it turns out. Hopefully we can do a great job that will make my friend happy and impressed, and, you know, hopefully you'll like it too. So check back soon to the 19th Legion.